Good morning, and welcome to the Rawls College of Business Center for Sales and Customer Relationship Excellence webinar, Women in Sales Leadership, Transformers and Achievers, featuring Rocky Voria, Director of IBM Global Digital Sales Development. We now welcome Dr. Sridhar Madhavaram, Professor and Marketing Area Coordinator.
Thank you, Julie. Again, welcome to the Carlton Whitehead Distinguished Speaker Series. This is our first event this year and third overall. And I would like to thank Carlton Whitehead and also Hank Doris, our platinum sponsor, for doing this. Again, I always wanted to say this, a very warm welcome from a very cold Texas. So again, welcome to all the webinar participants and our speaker, Rocky Voria. I hope I did not butcher the pronunciation. Now I turn it over to our own trailblazer, Dean Margaret Williams, a supporter of the area and this the sales center. Thank you.
Thank you, Sridhar. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to welcome you on behalf of the Rawls College of Business to another great installment in this wonderful series honoring women in sales leadership. Just when we thought that 2020 was behind us and there was nothing but wonderful news ahead, the blackout, the storm hit Texas. So once again, I'm pleased for Atul Pavadiar's foresight to schedule this as a virtual webinar series, which allows us to bring this to you because no one would be traveling to Lubbock this week for sure. So I want to thank Atul Pavadiar for envisioning this series and for bringing wonderful speakers to this series. I want to thank the team that helps put this on, Farazan Williams, Alejandra Marin, and Julie Doss, and of course the IT folks behind the scene. Appreciate all you do to bring this opportunity to our community and to our students. And Rocky, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, so excited to have our students be able to listen to your story and learn from your experiences. To me, and promoting women in business is one of the most important things we can do as a business college. Enrollment in business schools nationally, probably across the globe, is still male dominated. And we are a victim of that here at Texas Tech at the Rawls College of Business as well. So we welcome the opportunity to really focus on women in business, women in leadership, because it's so important for students to see those role models. So I know I was supposed to be looking into the camera, but I was looking at you, Rocky, when I was saying those words, because we're so pleased to have you join us. So I think I will turn it back to Sridhar, who will introduce our speaker this morning. And also let me add my thanks to the Carlton Whitehead family and to Hank Doris for being such generous sponsors of this series. So Sridhar.
Thank you, Margaret. Again, I would like to echo Margaret's sentiments about Atul's foresight and kind of bringing Rocky Voria to us to feature in this speaker series. Again, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Rocky. As you may have seen from the write-up that was provided to us, she's had a storied career. Right now, she is the director at IBM Global Digital Sales Development. She's been with Microsoft. And I've also seen that she wears many hats: sales leader, strategist, writer, speaker. And again, I don't know when she finds the time, but I've seen that she enjoys the New York restaurant scene too. And again, thank you, Atul, for bringing Rocky. Rocky, please take it away.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to join your webinar series. It's an honor to be here today.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sridhar.
I just wanted to say a couple of words about Alejandra and Farazan for doing this. Thank you, Alejandra. Both of them are our, some of our final members here. Alejandra is in marketing and supply chain, and Farazan Irani Williams is from management. Thank you both for doing this.
Great. No, it's our pleasure always. So as Sridhar and as our dean, now we're saying we are in a cold place right now, but I'm sure that this conversation will warm us up and lift our spirits. So let's get into it. As Sridhar mentioned, Raki, you have been right on a long career. You started in Microsoft, and then now you are in IBM, directing now this digital sales development division. So this sounds a very interesting journey. Could you describe that journey for us?
Yes, and thank you again for having me. I mean, before I begin, I do want to start by saying that I hope everyone in the Texas tech community and the Texas area in general are staying safe during this unprecedented snowstorm. So I have one of my largest sales teams actually in Coppell, Texas. So I've been staying very informed over the past several days, and I'm sending any well wishes to those of you who might be affected. But yes, a little bit about my professional journey. I'm currently the Director of Global Digital Sales Development at IBM. I joined the company about 2 years ago. And within my organization, I have about 350 digital development reps and business development reps who are responsible for client engagement, deal progression, and closure of certain deals. We sell the majority of the IBM portfolio across services, software, hardware. And prior to IBM, I was working at Microsoft, and I had a variety of different roles across sales, business development, finance. My last job at Microsoft was I helped them to build their inside sales team as the chief of staff to the corporate vice president of the worldwide inside sales team. So it was a new team the company invested in. We hired about 2,000 inside sellers in 3 years. So a lot of massive growth and just a lot of fun and an incredible opportunity to help build and shape a high performing sales team. As you mentioned, I also am very, passionate about advancing women, in particular, women in business and sales. It's a business function where women are unfortunately underrepresented across all levels. And so I've written about this, I've spoken on conferences about this, led workshops. I have the pleasure of serving as the executive co-chair of the Women at IBM group in New York City. So I'm very committed to attracting, retaining, and advancing women, and look forward to sharing some of my thoughts on this topic today.
Great. Yeah. So and as you mentioned, you are a very strong proponent of sales, women in sales and kind of more opportunity for women. And this, when you receive these awards, what do they mean to you to have these awards? How are they important, or what do they mean to you, these awards?
Well, I'm truly honored and humbled by the recognition. But in terms of what this means for me, look, it obviously feels nice to be recognized for my contributions, but that's not why people do what they do, or at least it's not why I do what I do. I do what I do because I'm passionate about it. It gives me energy and I want to make a difference. And like most people, any type of recognition, it does encourage me to continue on the path that I'm on. It's a good reminder that if you work hard, if you exhibit unwavering focus, if you dedicate your life to driving innovation in your field, that success and accolades will follow.
Great. And did you think that other people change because of these awards, or how those awards impact how you communicate with other people?
That's an interesting question. On a day-to-day basis, I don't think so, but I do think that recognition helps add a level of credibility. Mm-hmm. Look, let's lay it on the table. I'm very used to being the only in a room. I'm used to being the only woman, the only millennial, the only diverse person, sometimes all of those things at once. And I'll be honest, I've had instances in my career, especially earlier on, where I felt like, maybe people who were much more senior than me didn't take me seriously, or maybe treated me more like a daughter than as a colleague or a peer. And I think as I've progressed in my career, and as I've been recognized for my work, both internally and then externally in the industry, it has helped. It does add a level of credibility to demonstrate that, yes, there's a reason I have a seat at the table, and it's because I'm capable and I deserve it. Because I'll give you a random example. Someone might look at my name for a keynote speaking opportunity, for example, and they might look at me and say, oh, she's too young, or she's only a director. Why wouldn't we get a CEO? But if somebody were to say, well, she was she was named a top keynote speaker for sales last year by a media company, then they might say, oh, then we got to get her. So again, I don't think it does, nor should it change your day-to-day life, but it's something to be proud of and a badge to wear with honor.
Yeah, it gives a little bit of a spotlight, right? Great. So we continue with this idea of talking about the others. What do you think were role models where you are at the beginning of your career or throughout the development of your career? How do you see that? Did it play a role or not, having these role models?
Absolutely. Role models have played a huge role in my career. And I'd say the most prominent role model in my life has been my mom, Dr. Purnima Boria. She's a force of nature, and she has always worked to create change in her community despite facing hardships and setbacks. She was a single mom. There was a time where she was working multiple jobs at once, but she always made time to give back to her community and strengthened her business acumen by serving on a variety of different economic boards and commissions. And now she's a CEO. She's an internationally recognized speaker. She, even served as an advisor to the Obama administration on minority business enterprises. And she achieved all of this and more as an Indian immigrant while single-handedly raising me and my two sisters alone. And I think that really, helped me because at an early age, I was accompanying her to a lot of meetings. We did not have childcare. We didn't have a nanny. And so I had a chance to sort of see her in action, and I watched her navigate through political situations and see firsthand, often in male-dominated environments, how to persuade, how to negotiate, how to influence people at the highest levels. And at the time, I remember, I would be the 5-year-old kid sitting at the end of the corner with my coloring book or eating my McDonald's Happy Meal and being so annoyed that I would have to be sitting in these meetings. But in hindsight, it served as some of the best experiential training that I had. And it's a great reminder to give the youth and young people, even at the age of 5 or even earlier, opportunities to observe, learn, and grow. And I think with so many people working from home, now that actually offers the opportunity to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm, definitely. So I guess that is a great introduction to understand a little bit more about your upbringing, right? And the role that the upbringing kind of play later on in the professional development. Could you tell us a little bit about what hindsight, how do you see the role of your upbringing, your particular upbringing in where you are now?
I think growing up with a single mom and being surrounded by, 2 strong sisters who are older than me, it showed me that women can do anything. And I saw it firsthand myself. I think that's what really fueled my interest and commitment to removing barriers for women. And it's something that's been a part of my life really at every stage in some way, shape, or form. When I was in college, I wrote my undergraduate thesis on women's empowerment initiatives and microfinancing. I spent some time with an NGO in India. When I was in graduate school at Oxford, I wrote my dissertation on female employment policies in China and India. When I was at Microsoft, it just made a lot of natural sense for me to lead the Women at Microsoft group. So I was leading that globally. It was a group of 15 chapters, 20,000 people across the company. And as I mentioned, I'm doing the same at Women at IBM in New York City. So, it's something that's just kind of been part of my life. And that's why I wasn't shy to enter a male-dominated field. I saw that women can be successful if some of the systemic barriers are removed and addressed. And not only have I been able to survive in technology and in sales, but I've really been able to thrive in it in no small part thanks to my background and my upbringing.
Great. So now it seems that the sales, women, the equal opportunity has been one of your kind of key ideas. If we ask you for these key transformations or key ideas that you have championed throughout your professional journey, which key transformations those have been, which key ideas you have kind of believe and fight for them?
I've led some transformations on a variety of fronts. I think, from a sales perspective, I've had the pleasure of leading some large-scale global transformation efforts at both IBM and Microsoft now. So at IBM, I've been really deeply involved in helping to evolve our company's overall go-to-market strategy, and specifically for my function, digital sales development, have led some initiatives to figure out how we modernize, simplify, transform the function and take it to the next level. But I'd say, the probably the most notable transformation that I led was my time at Microsoft. I had mentioned that I had helped to build that digital sales team. I think that transformation sort of spanned across my interests in sales transformation, but also diversity. And a big piece of building that team and hiring those 2,000 people was being able to shape the type of profile that we wanted to bring in. The majority of the hires that we made came outside of Microsoft. So it was a chance for us to really rethink what did we want the profile of the team to look like. And a big piece of that was obviously ensuring diversity. And it's interesting, when we were hiring for all the roles, there were many men who were applying for the sales role. There weren't very many women. And as a result, it made us had to really confront some of the realities. We took a look at even the job descriptions themselves. I literally redlined some of our job descriptions and took out some of the masculine language. You would be surprised. I think a lot of times companies unintentionally do use words like competitive or aggressive or hungry, or some of these words that might be a turnoff to women. Or during the interview process, we made sure that every interview panel had at least one woman, because if you can't see it, you can't be it. So we wanted to show that we had a diverse and inclusive workforce, and then making sure that there were programs for women to have mentors and leadership development opportunities and all of that. So I'm really proud of some of that transformation work. It led to, in many of our geographies, we actually had more than 50% women in our sales force, especially in places like Asia, where traditionally it's quite hard to find women specifically for technical sales roles. But I think when you make it a business priority, like anything else, with metrics and goals and outcomes, and you really focus with the outcome in mind, then you can actually make some appreciable impact.
Great.
That is absolutely fascinating, especially from an HR perspective, which is my area. The way you talked about taking out stuff from the job description and the interview process, awesome. So you've worked in 2 Fortune 50 companies, IBM and Microsoft. You're attaining leadership positions in both. What challenges did you face in this upward trajectory? And more importantly, how did you overcome them?
There have been many challenges along the way. It hasn't always been rosy. And I think the main one's been imposter syndrome. When you are the only, as I described earlier, the only woman, the only non-white person, millennial, whatever it might be, it's normal to sometimes second guess yourself. And there were countless examples where people around me, unfortunately, contributed to that. I'll share a very personal example. When I had started a new role at Microsoft, I was 24 years old. And I was about a month into role, and there was an individual that was a peer of mine, but he was very, very senior. And as it was a job that had previously been held by somebody who was 3 levels above me, actually 4 levels above me. So it was a bit of a stretch, but there was a leader who believed in me, my capabilities, and was willing to take a chance on me and put me in this role. And I had a peer who was much more senior, who didn't live in the city. He was coming to headquarters for a meeting. And I remember just spending days preparing for this, because I really wanted to put my best foot forward, and I wanted him to see, I deserved to be in this role. And I've been thinking a lot over the past 30 days about how I was going to lead this team and all of the innovative ideas that I had. I was very excited for this meeting. And I remember he was in my office, and I spent about 30, 40 minutes pitching my entire strategy. And I felt really good about all the preparation that I did. And after the meeting, he stared at me, and he didn't address anything that I had said in the actual presentation. He said, I think you would really hit it off with my son. And he said, I have a 24-year-old son. He loves ambitious women. In fact, his ex-girlfriend was Indian. I think you guys would really get along. And I just remember sitting there, and I was just like feeling so discouraged and so defeated, because here I was, I had spent so much time, putting so much thought and effort into showing my capabilities. And that was the thing that he thought of after all that. Really? Come on. So, in that instance, I was just sort of like, okay, you got to shake it off. Don't pout. Find a way. It's for senior people like him to see you as a professional. You might be 24 years old. You might look like you're 12 years old, but darn it, somebody believed somewhere that you belong to be in this chair. So take a seat, stay true to yourself, remain professional, and show them why you're here. And that's what I did. So I think over time, I've been able to build my credibility because of the work that I produced. I think that's the best way to build your brand. Produce high quality work, be very collaborative. But the other way that I overcame some of these challenges was by surrounding myself with great people and mentors. I cannot stress the importance of this. There's so many instances where I've leaned on the support of people, and it can be people who are up and down and across, senior, younger than you, whatever it might be. But having people who can help you navigate through some of those situations and give you some tangible tips on how to deal with it is incredibly important.
Oh, I absolutely echo that. That's something that I truly believe in as well. I mean, given the fact that you had these challenges and you overcame them, I have to ask, what motivated you to keep going?
I don't know. I guess there was just no choice but to keep going. I wasn't going to give up just because someone made a silly comment here and there. I worked too hard to get to where I was, and nothing was handed to me. It wasn't easy. And, I mentioned the story of growing up with a single mom. She did so much for us. She got us to where we are because of the sacrifices that she made. So it made me realize I can't throw away my shot. And that's why I worked hard my whole life. I earned scholarships to go to Colorado College for undergrad, to Oxford for graduate school. I landed a job at Microsoft, one of the most iconic companies in the world, whose products touched 1 in 7 people on the planet. I was able to come into IBM as one of the youngest executive hires, another iconic company that's changing the world. And so I have just always told myself, I'm not going to lose sight of those things. I've worked too hard for them. And I guess I've just built some resilience and grit over the years, and just got to keep on keeping on.
I like that. Keep on keeping on. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'm hoping you'd go into a little bit more detail with what does it mean to be a woman leader in fields like tech and sales, both of which are traditionally male-dominated fields?
Well, I think there are challenges, but there's also so much opportunity. And that's why I try to dispel a lot of the myths and notions about what it's like to be a woman in technology or in sales. When I came to Microsoft, I have no technological background. I haven't taken a computer science class. I don't know how to code. But I really liked the field of technology because it's innovative, it's ever-changing, every other industry relies on it. And so I was excited about the prospect of working at companies like Microsoft and IBM. But that's one of the most important things. You have to know you actually don't need to have a deep technical background. There are roles across the business side, whether it's sales, marketing, HR, whatever it might be. So be open-minded about a career in technology. My journey into sales was actually a bit of a surprise. So I actually fell into sales. When I applied to work at Microsoft, I had applied to work in a marketing role because I had some advertising experience previously. And it was the recruiter who put me in the queue for sales. She said, have you ever considered a role in sales? I think you would be a great fit. You listen well, you ask a lot of questions, you've persevered in the face of adversity, you have a consistent track record of success. All of those things would make you a great fit for sales. And at the time, I was just, I had this visceral reaction. I said, I would never go into sales. I don't have the personality for it. It's so masculine, not competitive enough. I'm not aggressive enough. And unfortunately, I think a lot of women have that same reaction. But because I really liked Microsoft, I kind of just went with it. And I landed my first role in a sales role. And lo and behold, the recruiter was right. I loved it. I was really good at it. I learned a lot of tangible skills. It can be a very lucrative profession that offers a lot of flexibility. So all of the things that I was nervous about being a woman and the personality traits that I had, I learned actually that those were strengths. And those are what helped set me apart with some of my male peers. I did have a style that was more consultative. I asked clients a lot of questions. I was focused on being an empathetic salesperson versus somebody who was, trying to be in their face and getting them to close the deal. And that is why studies show that many women are actually better at sales than men. So I would say, for anybody who's out there considering roles in some of these male-dominated fields, be open-minded, because for me, I've been very fortunate. Despite being in male-dominated fields, I have really been able to flourish in my career and learn a lot along the way. And I think there's so many opportunities that we just need to open up women's minds to.
Fantastic. And you kind of touched again just a little, it's a great segue into this. What would you say is your leadership style? You know, as a trailblazer, how did you get people to rally behind you, especially early on in your first few leadership roles? How did you get people to rally behind you?
Honestly, when it comes to my leadership style, I try not to over-engineer it. I try to just be myself and believe in myself. And it's all about being positive, consultative, direct, honest, inclusive. My mom always tells me, you know, bring others with you. Otherwise, it'll be very lonely at the top. So I think my team would tell you that I'm a people-first leader. I love nurturing and building and scaling teams. My style is also one of empowerment. I like to remove roadblocks, provide vision and inspiration, but then get out of the way. Just empower my team to do what they need to do. But I also hold them accountable. I always bring my A game. I expect the same from my team. I always say, you know, we are the varsity team. We don't have room for junior varsity over here. And so it's, I have high expectations of my team, but I think, you know, it's really about leading with empathy and leading with a people first mindset.
That's fantastic. And what role do you think men should play in advancing women in leadership positions?
I think we need men to play a very strong and active role in this if we truly want to move the needle. And I'm delighted to see many men here listening on the call. I appreciate you making the time for this important topic because I'll be honest, most men, most positions of power across every industry are held by men. And also, you know, unfortunately, men have contributed to the problem for centuries. And so we need them to be part of the solution. So unless we have their support and leadership, it's going to be very hard to drive long-term systemic change. But I am delighted to see how many men in leadership roles have stepped up and have offered support, especially in recent years. I'm very optimistic that we'll see more and more of that. My advice to men is, you know, as I mentioned earlier, make this a business priority like anything else. Make sure you have a goal in mind, metrics, you know, performance. Look at this across every month, every level, and just take an inventory. Where are some of the gaps? Do you have equal volumes of women across your leadership positions, across your overall positions? Take a look at the wage gap. Are you paying your men and women the same? All of these things need to be looked at and, you know, built as part of a diversity talent strategy. It's not just women. I mean, we should be doing this for all marginalized groups, race, et cetera. So I think, you know, making it a business priority is really critical. Setting yourself some goals that you can actually work toward. I'm very proud that at IBM, we actually publish our diversity statistics publicly, and a lot of companies do that. I think that is a really great way to hold yourself accountable, to be transparent about where you are in the process. And, you know, to make sure that you actually have a goal in mind. So I encourage all men to just sort of roll up your sleeves, take an inventory of how your teams are looking today, build thoughtful plans on how you can get there, and most importantly, invest in spending time with women. There are so many women's initiatives and efforts that are sort of geared toward things like mentorship and developing confidence and all of that. But we also need to invest in tangible skill development for women. So making sure that women have the opportunity to learn about Finance 101, or how do you manage a P&L 101, or the art of negotiation. Things like that are really going to help women get to the next level.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, Verison, and thank you, Raki. I want to remind the audience to use the Q&A feature. We have received questions and we will get to them, right? We have the time towards the end of our talk. So I remind the audience, and by the way, we have around 50 people tuning, so that is very good. So yeah, please use the Q&A feature. Raki, so continuing with our conversation, very interesting to hear that you arrived to sales in a sort of not very planned way. But now that you look back, right, and I think you did mention a little bit about the role of sales, but why do you think sales is a good starting for as a career development in business? We do have students, right, choosing the minors and so on, and majors. So what do you see the role of sales as a starting in a business career?
Well, this is my favorite question because I'll use any opportunity to try to convince women to enter sales as a profession. But before I answer that, I want to ground people in the data actually on women in sales, because many people might not know. We hear a lot about getting more women into STEM careers, but we don't hear very much about getting women into sales. But it is an area where women are underrepresented across all levels. So today, about 39% of sales roles are held by women. It's only increased by about 3% over the past decade, so very little progress, unfortunately. The higher up you get, the worse it is. So only 1 in 5 vice presidents of sales are women. And sales has the second largest gender equity gap across all business functions after supply chain. So it is a very, very real issue. And I think there's a lot of reasons for why we don't have more women in sales, some of which was described even by my own personal experience of women just not considering it as a viable or a worthwhile profession. But I will share there are many reasons why women should consider roles in sales. And the first one is, as I mentioned, women are good at sales. There was a company called Xactly. They reported that women actually outperform men in sales by 3%. So 70% of women hit their quota compared to 67% of men. And women, they say, actually also hit their quota faster than men. There are countless studies out there. So the data shows actually that women are better at sales than men. And frankly, I mean, this shouldn't be surprising. I think women have a lot of natural characteristics and tendencies that make them a good fit, like the ability to build trust and nurture relationships and listen and provide recommendations. Those are some of the things that have served me well in my career. But the other reason is I think, you'll learn some tangible skills. I think sales is a great training ground. You have to be able to develop confidence and customer service and grit and perseverance. What better way to be able to learn some of those skills than by having to sell to a stranger? So I think, being able to position and influence and negotiate will help you regardless of whatever job you want to do next across every single industry. And that's the next piece. I think sales will really set people up to do anything. It's a really marketable and a transferable skills, especially for marketing, business development, corporate teams. It's always helpful to have people on your team who actually have customer-facing experience, who have gotten firsthand insights into what's resonating in the market with your products and your solutions. And then finally, a couple other reasons I'd say flexibility is one of them. So there was a report a couple of years ago by FlexJobs. They surveyed a number of different just job functions out there. And they said that account manager in sales is the most family-friendly career because they looked at high earnings, flexibility, and upward career trajectory. So sales can actually be a great place, especially for new moms. But most importantly, I think sales is a lot of fun. Richard Branson, he once said 80% of our life is spent working. You want to have fun. Why shouldn't you have fun at work? And I love that. I think it's, obviously satisfying to close the deal and to help customers, but it's also fun. Every day is new. You have to put on your creative thinking skills, a new hat every day. And I think that keeps your days interesting.
Awesome. Great. The fun plus, of course, a lot of the skill development and so on. In your experience of these 10 years, right, of being in sales, technology, right, also with certain expectations, were these expectations in your role in sales different because you were a woman?
I don't think so, honestly. I don't think people looked at me and said, you need to change your style per se, but there were instances in my career where I felt, or where people have even said, hide your age to gain credibility with the client, or, act like a man because you're going to be in a room full of only men. And I just don't subscribe to the notion that you need to change who you are. I said earlier, be yourself and believe in yourself. I think, some of those things can actually be your differentiating factor and help you stand out. So especially when I was earlier in my career and much more junior than most of my peers, I used that as a way for me to drive unique value. I said, I can innovate and I can invent new processes and ways of looking at the business than some of my more seasoned peers can do. Similarly, as a woman, there are so many times where you want to fit in, but at the same time, why not? Why not stand out? And so I remember there was an instance in my career where I knew I was going to be presenting to a Japanese client, and it was a set of 15 men from Japan who came in for the meeting and me. And you walk into this room and it's literally everybody's in black suits. And I remember thinking the day before, I was like, what should I wear? Should I wear my black suit? And I said, you know what? No, I am going to wear my bright red professional dress. And, I'm just going to be myself, it's still going to look professional, but it's okay to stand out. And in fact, it's a funny story because a few years later, I was actually in our Tokyo location for Microsoft, and I ran into someone in the hallway, and he said, I remember you from Seattle. You were the woman in the red dress. And, it was such a nice reminder, I guess, that sometimes those things that make us feminine actually can be a good reminder to people that you are different and that you have a different value that you can provide because of your gender. So never shy away from some of those qualities that make you unique, but instead use them to your advantage to differentiate yourself, to drive the business forward, and to be remembered.
Hey, like stand out in a good way, right? That's fantastic. I mean, your career journey has been very inspiring. All of the things that you're saying, it's like, oh man, that's awesome. And we've gained deep insights into all of your experiences, but let's look at the future a little bit, right? Given the success of your career thus far, I would say that you're on the trajectory to sit in the C-suite pretty soon. Whether it's at IBM or any other organization, you're getting there, I would say, in the near future, right? What changes or transformations would you champion when you get to that level?
Yes, well, I hope you're right. When I get to the C-suite. Well, wherever I'm working, I want to ensure that there are 50% women across all levels in the organization, but specifically, I think we need more women in middle and upper management, as well as women of color. So there was a recent McKinsey report, the Women in the Workplace study, and they were showing that women remain significantly underrepresented across all management levels, and women in color in particular, they only represent 4% of the C-suite and only 7% of vice president roles, with very little improvement over the past 5 years. So, as I was mentioning earlier, I think a lot of this is because we need to focus on not just centering around personal branding and networking and confidence and everything, but really equipping women with the tools that they need to increase their business strategy and their financial acumen. So in my efforts, I will continue to champion developing tangible skills to help other women get to the C-suite.
Fantastic, right? Pave the way for others to follow behind you so you don't remain the only one there.
Exactly. I look forward to the time where you don't need a group like Women at IBM, because women will just be represented across every level. So I am hopeful that we will definitely get there in my lifetime, but I think we need the support of women and men to help us get there.
Oh, well, on that note, what advice would you give other professionals as they embark on their own unique sales and leadership journeys?
Well, a few things. I guess we can kind of wrap up some of the topics that I had mentioned. The first one, once again, be yourself and believe in yourself. Everybody else is taken. Stay true to who you are. It's too hard to try to be somebody else. I think being your authentic leadership style is the most important way that you'll be able to thrive and succeed in your career. Second, build a strong network. I sort of think of mine as my board of advisors, and you have different people for different things. I try to think about what are all the tools that I need in my tool belt to be successful. So there are people that I go to when I need on-the-job functional advice. There's people I go to for career development advice. There's people I go to for negotiation advice. You don't need one specific mentor who can help you for everything, but it's okay to have a few informal people that you can reach out to along the way to help increase your business acumen and your efficacy and all of that. So those are some of the two things. And then, the third is just be open-minded. For me, every opportunity that I've ever gotten was thanks to the support of somebody else who either opened up a door for me or opened up my mind to a role or a job or a possibility that I would have never naturally considered. So If somebody reaches out to you about a job or a recruiter, I always tell people, take the call. Even if you're happy in your job, even if the job that they're pitching to you doesn't seem like a good fit, you're not interested in the company, the pay seems too low, just take the call. The worst you can do, you spend 10 minutes, but it's helpful to know what's out there, and it's helpful to know what your market value is. It's a good way to sort of keep an idea out on what's in the industry. You never know when it's going to lead to something else. And then finally, my biggest piece of advice is lift while you climb. I love that phrase. I think, every opportunity I've gotten has been thanks to the support of somebody else. And I always just try to think of ways that I can pay it forward to, whether that's time, mentorship, advice, financial contributions, whatever it might be. It's never too early. Even if you are straight out of college and this is your first job, think about how you can be a cross-generation mentor to someone. There might be somebody who has been in the industry or the business for several decades, and they need a fresh perspective that you can help push them in a different way. So everybody has something to contribute. Make sure you think about what that is for you and really pay it forward along the way.
Oh, that is fantastic. That has resonated so deeply with some of my own thoughts on this. But while we've been conversing, we've had questions that have been asked by our audience in the Q&A. Alejandra, do you want to take that away?
Yes, I think continuing with the advice, some of our audience wants to know about the first job. What tangible advice can you give to people that are looking for internships, like kind of the first job? Specifically advice for the first job / internships.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the most important thing you can do is get a referral. So especially if you want to work at these big Fortune 500 companies, if you just go to ibm.com/careers and apply, you're going to get lost in the system. These companies get thousands of applications all over the world every single day. So leverage your network. I mean, Texas Tech must have an incredible alumni community and a career center. Don't be afraid to put on your sales hat and cold call people. Send them a note on LinkedIn. Share that you are a junior, you're a graduating senior, you're looking for your new job. You want to chat with people to learn about their role, their team, how they've navigated through their careers. You can't be shy. I will say that I do that all the time, and it's really encouraging to see that basically nobody ever says no. Most people are willing to give you 15 minutes of their time, whether it's a virtual coffee or whatever it might be, but you own your career. You're the person who needs to take that step, and you need to make sure that you're building that network yourself. So that's one piece. Another piece about kind of landing your first job, I think you need to sort of think about what gives you energy. And you have to narrow your search a little bit, because it's hard for people to help you if you just say, I want a marketing job. Okay, you want a marketing job. Are you interested in a startup? Are you interested in a multinational? Do you like consumer? Do you like enterprise? Do you want to live in San Francisco? Do you want to live in New York? Like, the more you can narrow down what some of those high-level criteria are, that's going to help those around you sort of navigate and guide you to certain areas. And then third, I would say the best way to understand what a job is really like is by shadowing somebody who's already in the job. So sometimes you might hear of a job and you'll say, oh, I really want to do that. And you spend a couple hours with a person and you say, oh my gosh, this is not for me. I actually had that experience early on when I was, I think, like 12 or 13 years old. My mom was very close friends with the Attorney General of Colorado. And at the time, like, I thought that I wanted to be a lawyer. And she said, why don't you shadow her for a day? And I shadowed her, and I just thought, oh my gosh, law is not for me. She had so many books, and she was reading all of these legal things all day long. And I think during that week, there was a huge situation at the University of Colorado. There was a big rape story that she was helping to deal with. And I was just so floored by what being a lawyer actually entailed. And I'm so glad that I had that experience and that opportunity early on. So it's never too early to really get a sense of what a job is like. Make sure you're reaching out to people, asking to shadow them, and pick their brain about what the day-to-day is truly like.
Great. So you went to Colorado, right, for your undergraduate, and then you went to Oxford. One member of our audience wants to understand what take you to that path? What major, how did you decide your major, and then what led you to go to Oxford?
So when I was at Colorado College, I studied international political economics. It was basically half business, half political science. I knew I loved business. I wanted to go into business, but what I liked about international political economics was the fact that it was interdisciplinary, and I realized that business and politics go hand in hand. So that's why I had studied that. And in terms of what I did at Oxford, it was an interesting story. So when I was graduating from Colorado College, I knew I wanted to go into business, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I liked sales or marketing or finance. And so I thought that I was going to go the consulting path. I thought, let's apply to the McKinseys of the world, or Bain or BCG, because that's what everyone does when they know what they don't want to do. So I was applying to consulting companies, and then I had a friend of mine who was a few years above me at Colorado College. He said, "You've got to apply for this scholarship that I got at Oxford. It was the best year of my life. I think it would be a great fit." So I wasn't targeting graduate school, but once again, it was a mentor of mine who basically encouraged me to think about a new possibility. So I applied for this scholarship. I was so fortunate to be able to get it. And so that's what led me down going to graduate school, actually. And while I was there, I kind of got a master's in something that's not directly professionally aligned with what I'm doing or what I wanted to do. So I got a master's in comparative social policy. And basically, we compared different social policies across a range of countries: education, healthcare, social security, women's issues, et cetera. And so I kind of went there knowing this isn't directly aligned with wanting to work at a Fortune 500 company, but it's an incredible opportunity to just study something I'm passionate about and go to a really incredible school. So I'm fortunate for that opportunity. But it even though it wasn't directly aligned with my career path, it's interesting to think back on it and realize how much of it was still aligned with what I'm doing today. I learned about some of the injustices that people face across the globe. And now that I work at a technology company, I can think about how can technology help to solve some of those problems. Or I had a chance to be in a very worldly environment for the first time. It was the first time I'd ever lived away from Colorado. I grew up there my whole life. So being surrounded by people of different cultures, of different backgrounds, of different values, all of those things have served me well now leading a global team.
Awesome. I think that we have an anonymous question, and I think this very interesting how you can build a case for diversity without being too disruptive. So as a woman that is applying for a sales position in a technology company that doesn't currently have much diversity, how can you present that hiring that you will be valuable to the company without stepping on the management's toes?
So basically the question is around if there's a person who's looking to join a company that's pretty male dominated.
And you bring the diversity, how you can put it kind of positive, but without being, you are not doing this and I am bringing this to you.
Well, here's the thing. Every company right now is under a spotlight and scrutiny for not having diversity. And so use that to your advantage as women. I mean, this is our chance to get our foot in the door. And so if you're applying for a company that might not have a lot of diversity, I would mention that. I would say, look, I want to contribute to a diverse and inclusive culture at this company. I think I could offer a different perspective than the current profile of people in your organization for XYZ reason. And when I get here, I'm committed to also helping to increase the number of diverse people in the roles here, because I'm sure that's an important business priority for you. And it's really hard for people to say, no, that doesn't matter. We care more about, hiring 100 men. We don't want 50 women. Like nobody's ever going to say that. So I would use it to your advantage. But don't be afraid to ask questions during the interview process. When I applied to both Microsoft and IBM, I wasn't shy to do that. I said, do you have any programs in place for women? Do you have a women's network or a group? How would I get involved in that if I was brought on? What types of initiatives do you have? Do they meet on a monthly basis? What does that look like? So I think showing your curiosity and interest in them now will help them to realize this is something that you're passionate about. but it also might, encourage them. If they don't have any of those things, they might think, oh my gosh, that's a gap in our current process and something we need to fix. So it's really twofold, but I think it's important to talk about that as part of the recruiting process.
Great. I think other people want to know, as you progress in your career and you move up in terms of responsibilities, what were key factors in terms of your performance that were decisive in the moment of you to have more responsibilities? And we have some examples here, for instance, big deals that you closed, or maybe presenting a new strategy. What was key for you to gain and to climb up the ladder, right, in terms of responsibility and sales? What was key for your going up?
I would say that there were a couple things. The first was I tried to always make sure that my work was measurable and results oriented. It's really hard to argue with results, right? When you're achieving your quota, when you're closing big deals, when you're doing all of these things, it's hard not to get noticed. So I think if you are working with your management to make it very clear, what am I accountable for? What are your expectations of me? Then you can actually build a plan on how to get there. So the measurable piece is very important. The other thing that I think had served me well is it really helps when people are leveraging your own work. So one of the ways that big companies look at measuring your success is, are others leveraging the work that you're doing to be successful as well? And so, anytime I was doing something, I would try to say, this was a best practice that I developed in my territory as a seller. I want to share it nationally with the rest of my peers. And that would give me some visibility on calls to show the approach I had taken or whatever. So I think that's a really important piece. It's like, are you doing stuff just for yourself, or are you doing it to support and benefit the broader organization? That's leadership. I mean, there are times where I was an individual contributor. I wasn't even leading teams, but I had more impact and influence in some of those roles just because I had the opportunity to sort of showcase myself as a thought leader in the position and had other people sort of follow along on the journey.
Great. I guess if I may continue, we have a lot of questions, so that is great. There is a very interesting question about the risks that you took. What were kind of important risks that you took in your career in sales and throughout the trajectory, and how do you manage to mitigate or maybe leverage the opportunity that you had in front?
I think the biggest risks, I guess, were just sort of going to different teams and companies that I didn't feel like I had the background in. So when I moved from my sales role, I went to the Microsoft financing division and I did business development for the Americas. It was a very random opportunity that came about. I had a mentor of mine, and she was somebody that I had quarterly syncs with for a couple of years. And one day she called me out of the blue and she said, I'm leading the Microsoft financing division. I have a role on my team. Would you be interested? And again, it's not an area of the company I would have ever naturally considered. I had no finance background. It took me away from sales, sort of, but closer to the financing sales team. I mean, it was a bit of a risk for me. I mean, it's not as risky as leaving your company and starting your own or something like that. But it was, going into a division where I didn't really have the background or the expertise. But I kind of just followed my heart and my gut. And I thought, finance is an important skill, regardless of what I want to do in the long run. It's a good thing for me to learn. I admire this woman who I've built a mentorship relationship with. And it's a chance to stretch myself. I, have more geographical scope. I'm learning about a different business function. I'm supporting a different team in a completely different division. And it ended up being a great move for me. Similarly, coming to IBM, that was a bit of a risk, right? I was having a very flourishing career at Microsoft. I loved Microsoft. I was traveling the world, learning a lot, having these incredible experiences, getting promoted pretty aggressively. It was great. But the way that things sort of ended up at IBM, I was part of this industry external organization representing Microsoft on a council. I had met a leader who was leading the IBM digital sales team. He asked if I'd be open to chatting about roles on his team. Once again, never thought I would end up at IBM. I always thought if I were to leave Microsoft, it would be to do something completely different, not just trade one big enterprise tech company to go to another. But had the chance to meet with some incredible leaders as part of IBM's leadership team, and was completely blown away by the people. The job itself was great. I'd always wanted to live in New York. So it just ended up being a really great fit. So long-winded answer, but I think, every step in my career journey, it was always a bit of a risk because it was taking on a new business function that was totally different. And I've taken a different approach from some people. Some have more of a linear path. They want to start as a seller, then become a sales manager, then a VP of sales, then a CRO. I've liked to try different things. I sort of think of my career as a portfolio career, a liberal arts experience in the executive world. It's like, having roles across different business functions so that one day I can be in the C-suite and have all of the knowledge of what it takes to actually lead a business end to end.
Great. I think that answers the question by Naomi. So I guess that was great. Raki, just start to concluding a little bit here. Some people want to know if there are unique skills that women bring to sales, and also a little bit related with the background going into sales. Do you think people have to have a business degree, economics background, in terms of the background coming into sales, and unique skills that women bring in sales and leadership?
No, absolutely not. And I think, that's actually one of the things that was mentioned in that Flex job study where I said that they listed account management as the best job. And one of the reasons is because it doesn't require an advanced degree or even a business degree at all. I think, when I actually bring on people to my team, I try to recruit from very non-traditional sources. So I have some of the best sales hires I've ever made. They're people who come from military, for example. They have strong teamwork. They've persevered in the face of adversity. They have camaraderie. They're relentless. I have hired people from retail stores, real estate agents I have found to be very good with their sales type of skills, HR recruiters, for example. I mean, all of these things are sales. Everybody is selling in everything that they're doing every single day. So don't be discouraged. I mean, if you don't have a background in sales or even business or economics, that actually might be to your advantage. What most people, or at least what I look for, is more of a consistent track record of success. And that can be in whatever it was. So if I'm hiring someone straight out of school, I don't expect them to have years of work experience, obviously. But whatever it is that you do, did you do it well, and did you demonstrate a consistent track record of success? Whether that was dance or sports or music or whatever it was it something that you were trying to be the best in your field that you were committed to for a long period of time? So like anything, you can sell yourself in any way, shape, or form. So just think about, if you don't have those sales specific background or skill, what is it that you do have in your background that could translate well, and find ways to communicate that in the interview process.
Great. So I guess it's good to think about these three things that we can take from your own learning. What would you see? What would you say are key three things that help you go through either adversity or to gain more responsibilities? What do you think are three things that we can take? We should take.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll just reiterate some of the things I mentioned already. The first one, mentors. So I don't want to be repetitive, but I think that's one of the most important tools that you can have in your toolkit. The second is probably confidence. And I believe that confidence is a skill that can be practiced and developed like everything else. You don't have to have it off the bat, but you can get there. Just put yourselves in situations and opportunities where you can learn and observe and grow. And third, it's probably just, once again, be open-minded. Every opportunity that came about for me, I mean, it wasn't something that would have traditionally been top of mind, but it's ended up working out. And I try not to over-engineer it, as I said, but it's important to just sort of be open-minded and seize different types of opportunities.
Great. Very fun. You think we cover
Yes, and I think what has come about the most for me, or I think the thing that I've taken most from what you've said, is this idea that there's no growth in your comfort zone, right? You stay in your comfort zone, you're never going to grow. That these opportunities, things especially that you haven't considered, you've got to step out of your comfort zone to keep that open mind to experience these opportunities, right? And is that, am I summarizing it correctly?
Absolutely. Yes. You know, there's no linear path these days. Gone are the days where you start at one company and spend 30 or 40 years of your life there. I mean, that was definitely the case a decade ago, maybe 5 years ago. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of a career path. But for individuals at your university who are probably embarking on their career, the world is your oyster. I mean, there's so many different things that you can try and test, and just leverage all of the tools and capabilities that you develop during your university experience to differentiate yourself in the workplace.
Great. No, excellent. Raki, thank you so much for this very warm hour of conversation. Great. We wish you all the success in your future, and we really appreciate our audience. Was great. Very interesting questions. I hope I was good at getting most of them answered and asked. I think we can start wrapping up our conversation today. So I give it back to Julie. Thank you
so much, Raki.
Thank you. I look forward to staying connected with this community. I put my LinkedIn in the IM window, so always happy to chat with anyone or help, but look forward to staying connected.
Thank you, Raki. On behalf of the Rawls College of Business and the Center for Sales and Customer Relationship Excellence, we want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Thank you to Dean Margaret Williams, Dr. Sridhar Madhavaram, Dr. Atul Parwatiar, and Matthew Winfrey. A big thank you to Raki Voria and both of our moderators for your excellent insight. This presentation and prior presentations are available on the Center's website, and I've placed that link in the chat. We hope all of you will join us for future presentations. Stay warm and have a great day.